Konnichiwa. Today we're going to talk about the receptive helper verb. In other places you will hear this referred to as the passive conjugation. Now, as we've already learned, there are no conjugations in Japanese, so it can't be a conjugation. Also, it isn't passive. So that's 0 out of 2 for the textbooks. And this matters because if we think of the receptive helper verb as a passive conjugation, it completely disrupts our grasp of the structure, and once again it throws those poor particles all over the room. And as we know, the particles are the linchpins, the hinges on which Japanese turns. So if we mess up the particles, we're in deep trouble. And this is why so many people find Japanese hard to understand. So now I've mentioned passive conjugation just so you know what we're talking about if you find it in other contexts. Let's drop those words completely and call it what it is. The receptive helper verb. So what is the receptive helper verb? It's a verb that fits onto the a stem of another verb, and the a stem, that's the same stem that we use for attaching the nai negative helper adjective, isn't it? The receptive helper verb is reru, rareru. That's reru for good-an verbs, rareru for ichidan verbs. Now, a lot of people panic when they see that the rareru of the ichidan receptive helper verb is the same as the rareru of the ichidan potential helper verb, but there's no need to panic, it's perfectly alright. In English, we have things like this as well. For example, we have the words to, and to. And they're all pronounced the same, and they're all very common words that are used hundreds of times every day. And how often do they get confused? Not very often at all. And it's the same with the potential and the receptive helper verb. They're used in quite different situations, and there's very little chance of confusing them in real use. And real use is what matters. So, what does the receptive helper verb mean? It means receive or get. Receive what? Receive the action of the verb to which it is attached. Now, most of the time I'm going to use the word get because this expresses very clearly what the helper verb does. Your old English teacher might say it's not the best way of expressing things, but it's a perfectly good way of expressing things in English, and in Japanese it is exactly how we do express them, alright? So, let's take a simple example. Sakura ga shikarareta. Shikaru means scold or tell off, and the a stem is shikara. So when we add to that reru and put it into the past tense, we get shikarareta. Shikaru is scold. Shikarareru is get scolded. Shikarareta is got scolded. So Sakura got scolded. Now, there's an important thing to bear in mind here, and that is that we can sometimes, with a helper verb attached to a verb, we can, as a sort of railroad shorthand, condense those two parts into one verb. So we can say hon ga yomeru, and although yomeru, which is the potential form of yomu, is strictly speaking yome plus ru, we can combine them together and treat yomeru as one engine. But we can't and never should do that with the receptive helper verb. Why not? Because when the receptive helper verb is attached to another verb, the action of the first verb is always done by someone different from the action of the second verb, reru, rareru. So we always have, in a receptive sentence, the action that is done by someone else, who we may or may not know, plus the real action of the sentence, which is reru, rareru, the receiving, the getting of that action. And this is the fundamental point to bear in mind. It's because the textbooks don't keep this in mind and don't keep those two engines separate that all the confusion and difficulty over the so-called passive conjugation arises. The head verb of hereru, rereru, receptive sentence is always reru or rareru, not the verb to which it is attached. Alright, now let's also notice that the akar, the actor of the sentence, is not necessarily a person. So if we say, mizu ga nomareta, nomu, drink, noma, astemo, drink, reta, got, we are saying the water got drunk. And the actor of that sentence is the water. Now even if we add a doer of the action, mizu ga inu ni nomareta, the actor of the sentence is still the water, not the dog, because it's the water that got drunk. It's the water that did the getting. The dog did the drinking, but the water did the getting. And the dog drinking the water is all a white section which modifies that final head verb, get. The water got drunk by the dog. Now, why do we mark the dog with ni? I'm going to come to that in just a moment. Let's get a fuller sentence so we can see all the particles working together in a receptive sentence. Sakura wa dareka ni kaban ga nusumareta. Nusumu is steal. Nusuma, hastemo steal. Nusumareru, get stolen. Nusumareta, got stolen. Dareka means someone. Dare, who, plus ka, question. Who was it? We don't know. No one in particular, but someone. Dareka, someone. So, what's going on here? Who is the receiver of the action? It's not Sakura, she's marked by wa. It's not someone who's marked by ni. It's the person who's marked by ga, and that's the bag. The bag is what received that stealing, so the bag is the subject of the sentence. The bag is the one who did reru, who did got. And ni, what's it doing here? Well, let's remember that ni marks the ultimate target of an action. So, Sakura ni boru o nageta. The ga marked actor is I. The object of the action is boru, and the target of that action is Sakura. Now, this kind of ni can only be used when we are projecting something, whether it's throwing a ball, sending a letter, giving a present, lending a book. We have to be projecting something toward the target. Now, reru is not a projecting verb, it's a receiving verb. It's not a push verb, it's a pull verb. Therefore, the target of that verb is not something towards which you are projecting, it is the thing from which you are receiving. So ni performs the same function in relation to a pull verb that it performs in relation to a push verb. That is the ultimate target of the push, the ultimate source of the pull. So you see, all the particles are doing exactly what they always do. Nothing is changing here. If you think of it as passive conjugation, all the particles do a strange dance and seem to be doing different things from what they usually do. But if you understand it as it is, the receptive helper verb, there isn't any problem. And it all makes sense just the way Japanese always does, if you know what it's really doing. Now there's one other area in which the receptive sometimes confuses people, and that is in the so-called suffering passive or adversity passive, which is actually called in Japanese the meiwaku ukemi, which means the nuisance receptive, and that's what it is, it's the nuisance receptive. Sakura wa dareka ni kaban ga nusumareta means Sakura's bag got stolen by someone, or literally, in relation to Sakura, bag got stolen by someone. But we can also say, Sakura ga dareka ni kaban wo nusumareta. What happens here? This is the nuisance receptive. So what's happening here? The ga marked actor is now Sakura, isn't it? She is the one who does the receiving. So what does this sentence mean in English? Very simple. Sakura got her bag stolen. That's what we say in English. Your old English teacher might not like it, but we say it in English, it makes sense in English, and it's exactly what we say in Japanese. Sakura got her bag stolen by someone. So I think you can see that there is in fact no problem, no difficulty, no confusion about the receptive helper verb, just so long as you know that it is the receptive helper verb and not something else. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments below. If you have any comments, please make them, and as usual, I will answer. I'd like to thank my gold Kokeshi patrons, my helper angels who make these videos possible, and all my patrons and supporters on Patreon and everywhere, and I'd like to thank you for attending this lesson. これからもよろしくお願いします. Class dismissed.